I have the headset on, so I could hear myself more clearly.
Oh yeah.
Whereas you guys don't hear how close you are.
Yeah.
So I'm
Yeah.
like, oh man, I gotta get.
And do you get the ing, or is it okay?
It's okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Usually when we talked about this the last time, but usually when we have our co-host Kelly on, she has a voice that carries like a foghorn.
Oh really?
Yeah.
And
Tell me if I'm
occasionally-
being too loud.
No,
No, you're great there.
Okay. And you're going to have to subtitle this because half the people aren't going to understand what anything is. So, just FYI, you might have to get the transcript.
I love that.
I find English to be a little bit easier than Australian because there was like a twang. You know?
Yeah. They
And you guys enunciate a
Well,
little.
I do try. As I was leaving the house, my husband was like, wait, what are we having for dinner? I said, I don't know, but I'm leaving now. And so I said, and okay, I'll make some chicken. And as I'm leaving, I said, bye. He said, have a good podcast. And he goes, wait, 25 minutes in the oven? I'm like, and I said, 25 minutes. And because when I'm cross, I enunciate more. So, and he goes, 25, okay. So there you go.
Perfect.
Just get
and that's
across
how we're going to start this podcast because that's awesome.
Yeah.
Today we have a really awesome guest, our first official pickleball coach and co-founder of Absolutely Pickled, Penny. Hopefully I don't ruin this.
Okay,
Finders,
that's it.
Perfect. Yes, I got that. I saw the notes on here.
Yep.
Welcome to the Bet on Her podcast.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm so excited to have a chat with you
Yeah,
guys.
this is gonna be great.
I know. I'm excited for you to be here because I just met you a couple weeks ago.
Yep.
And I got I felt so honored to be able to play with her and a couple other players in pickleball. And I went in when we were playing, and I was really nervous because
Were you?
I was.
Didn't seem like you were.
Well, so Gina, who the
Yep.
mutual friend, she's also, her name is also Gina.
Nice.
And
Makes life easy.
Yeah.
Thought. Nice shot, Gina. Stop cheating, Gina.
And so she's like, well, we're 4.0 players, like, we're pretty good. And I'm like, okay, like I'll try, I'll try and hold my
Wait,
own.
what is a 4.0 player?
So you can explain.
Yeah, so basically they're a rating system. There's a rating system, as there is in tennis. There's a rating system in pickleball, right? So generally, a beginner level doesn't have a rating, but those that have sort of started to play and have got the hang of it and know the scoring, you usually start around a 2.5, okay? There are lower ratings, but 2.5, you're kind of, you know what you're doing. You can get on the court, but the rallies are usually pretty short. As you progress, and by the way, with pickleballs, you get better very quickly, which is why it's such a great sport. Then you go up to 3.0, 3.5, and then 4.0, you're kind of hanging. You can do most things pretty well. You've got some feel and touch, and there's more to do. So there's a whole rating system all the way up to the pros that have got 5-point whatever ratings, okay? So the pros are all 5-point somethings. Those of us that are, what I like to say is sort of, I would always say, compared to Lee, my business partner, who's a pro, I'm your garden variety pickleball player, but I'm a decent 4.0. So I'm somewhere between 4.0 and 4.5. And, but I've, like I say, when you play in a tournament, you get an official rating. So, but if you're just playing, we have leagues in town that we just say, if you think you're about a 3.5, and you'll know as soon as you show up, where you're at. Okay. My husband, for example, started out in a mixed team on a 3.5 team. He went 0-16 his first season.
Oh no!
This is a man who is highly competitive, and he was like, "What is going on? I'm not happy about this. I should be able to figure this out." But he was playing against guys that had played before and a lot, and he'd never played. So now they're in 3.0, which is exactly where he needs to be, and he's doing great. So he's like, I think he's 10-3 right now.
That's good. Then.
Winning record now.
Yeah.
But he was 0-16. That has never happened to the man in his sporting career.
What is your rank?
I don't know. I played in El Segundo, the courts. They had a charity tournament in the fall, and I played in it with Nikki Jade, and her mom is also a pro pickleball player. Her Kim Jade is her mom. Anyway, so Nikki had played in the tournament the year before. She'd done okay in the 3.5, and it was my first tournament. So she was like, "Let's play 3.5. I feel like it's a good starting point."
Yeah.
And we get there, and I mean, we crushed these teams.
Yeah.
I don't mean to sound cocky, but I felt really bad because we were switching sides with one team, and one of the ladies, she passes by me. She's like, "By the way, you're not a 3.5. And I looked at her and I was like, I'm sorry, this is my first tournament ever.
Yes.
And she was like, oh, cool.
Yes.
Anyway,
Yeah.
but it was like, so now I know. And
Yeah.
since playing with you guys, obviously you guys all have a tennis background.
Correct.
So your form is perfect. You've got the slice, like the backhand, and I'm just here like waving my hands, like switching hands, like obviously some volleyball reactionary.
Totally. But I mean, the thing is, that's just it though. You don't have to have a racket sport background to get good at this. And you know, your trajectory already since we met, like she's going to get better and better and better because you're such an athlete.
Oh, thank you.
And volleyball players, you know, I tried to lob both of them this evening. I'm like, what am I doing? Volleying, lobbing a volleyball player? Because you all have that amazing overhead anyway. And, you know, you're all tall and you've got amazing reach. And the wingspan on a pickleball court is really advantageous. And in tennis, you can get it past people.
Right.
But in pickleball, that's why we always say down the middle solves the riddle, because if you go for the sides, there's not much margin and people can cut it off. And so you're going for the lines, you might miss, you know, and you've got a wiffle ball type ball that flies. So if you don't hit it correctly, you're not going to make that down the line shot. And so, you know, you're going to be, I mean, I'm not at all surprised that you took out the 3.5s, and that's good to hear.
Well, thanks.
You can totally hang. You can totally hang.
Thank you. I
I
appreciate
love how she said you took out the 3.5s.
sliced and diced them.
Yeah.
But anyway, so like I definitely want to get into kind of how you got into pickleball coaching in general, but like maybe let's first get into Absolutely Pickled.
Yes,
because
that would be great.
I think it is awesome what you're doing for the sport, and you're doing it with your good friend who's also a pro. So if you can give us a little background about what Absolutely Pickled is.
So we've only been in existence since February of last year. Feb 2023 is really when we started the company, and I'm representing it right now.
We're going to zoom in on it.
Yeah, and the cap, merch available on the Absolute Pickle website. And by the way, this is the breast cancer awareness version, which 10% goes to breast cancer awareness if you buy one of these. And the idea really came from Lee, and Lee Whitwell is my co-founding business partner. And we've been friends for a very long time, but and I can give you the history of that, which is quite funny. But we decided to start this company because we're both we think we're both quite funny and we would have very funny conversations, and she's got a very dry sense of humor, and we have a lot of banter. So we were like, initially we were like, let's just do a podcast and call it Absolutely Pickled. And then she was like, yeah, but we could do all these events and entertainment things, and I'd love to have you running camps with me. And then also she was getting approached a lot because the pickleball scene has ballooned, right? Particularly during COVID, you know, that's when really the trajectory of the sport and the participation went through the roof. And so a lot of people are trying to cash in on this and build facilities, and there aren't enough courts, as we know, anywhere, particularly in California. And so, but she's actually based in Florida, and so she was getting approached a lot about giving people advice on like how many courts can I fit, and how should I set them up, and what should I have, and what's the programming I should use. And so there was a consultancy gig, and she was telling me about this, and I said, mate, I called her one day, and she was going to Utah. And I said, what are you going to Utah for? She goes, they're flying me out there. They want me to kind of give them some advice on this indoor court facility that's being built for indoor courts. And I said, what are you charging? She said, I'm not charging anything. I'm just, they're flying me out there and they're paying my expenses. I said, mate, you need to be charging. This is valuable information you're sharing. So that was when we sort of said there's a business entity, you know, business opportunity there, just in order to make sure that she's not spending a lot of time and not getting compensated for it. So we have there's a consultancy arm to the company. There's the entertainment arm, which is really the podcast and the events that we're ramping up. She's done a few clinics, but our idea is really to have some really fun events that are not aggro tournaments where people are all angry energy.
Oh yeah, I've seen those online.
Yeah, like a lot of people get into it and they want to play the tournaments and they want to get better and they want to beat everybody, and there's this angry energy, and we were like, we want to have fun, we want to have music playing, we want people mixing around, we want people that are better playing with the helping the other ones and giving everybody opportunity and generally having a good time. So that's sort of the idea. And then then we came up with this cool logo, and we thought, well, that's a merchandise opportunity right there. So we've got hoodies and caps, and we're expanding the merchandise site. But we're just going to see, But the main goal was to try and expand the sport of pickleball, get people talking about it, get people. We're not worried about the pro players as much. We have some pro players on our podcast, obviously, but we're more interested in the rec player that wants to get better. And they can write in and ask Lee for advice. We have a Dear AP section on our podcast, where we have people write in and she answers their questions. And if we have a guest, they help answer the questions. And we've got also on our website, drop us a line and she'll help you. So that was kind of the idea, and we're just going to see where it goes.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
It seems like tennis culture has kind of filtered in a little bit into pickleball. And, like if I'm playing on the court and I'm communicating a lot in tennis, that's weird. Like you're more quiet and you don't really say anything to their team. And so it sounds like these events that you're going to have are going to be, it's going to be a different culture.
Much more Vegas. Yeah. It's much more fun. Much more, both Lee and I are from England, right? Well, she's from Gibraltar, but we're English, right? So we grew up in country club, Wimbledon, all whites, grass court, everybody be quiet when we're playing. And pickleball is so different from that. It's the other end of the spectrum. It's fun, and you're in much closer quarters. So, and your mates are playing, and you can chat with them right there and then, and you're all kind of drawing to one another, and you're making fun of one another, and it just has that more intimate feel. And I think also it's very accessible. It's a real equalizer, so you can get good really quickly, but also you don't have to be very good to be able to have fun and actually have some success, right? So the example I would give you is I have 2 boys, my husband and 2 grown boys, and I could not get them to play tennis when they were younger. I wanted them to be tennis players, and no, it's a girls' sport, mum. And I was like, what do you mean it's a girls' sport? And I stuck Rafael Nadal poster up on the wall, like, does he look like a girl? Look at him. And they wouldn't get into it, so I'm like, I'm not going to push her. Whatever. And I'm sure it was because they couldn't beat me, right? But occasionally we would get on the court and we would have a family 4. And it was just a disaster. We did 2 or 3 points, and I have to play with the worst one, and it wasn't fun for anybody, right? Fast forward to pickleball comes around. We now go down to the park, play pickleball. Oh my God, they're athletes like you. And suddenly it's a totally different ball game. And they're taking my head off, you know what I mean? And we're having close matches, and I think I can play, and they're all about taking me out. And it's just a real equalizer, right? And you can get good pretty quickly, and you can play with grandma, and you can play with a little kid, and you can, guys and girls. There's no like, it's not a real women's and men's a thing. It's like you get men and women playing together, all doing okay and just being able to have fun.
All ages.
Yeah.
I think, I've talked to a couple tennis players.
Yep.
And it seems to be there. Like, what's your comment on like tennis players who are upset about pickleball, right? Because now you see these courts that are being turned into pickleball courts.
Yep.
And do you think that that's like taking away from opportunities for tennis, or what's your take on that?
My opinion is there's room for both.
Yeah.
I think a lot of tennis players, I mean, when I was first introduced to the sport, I'm like, it's an old person sport, isn't it? I don't want to do that. But Lee was the one that got me into it. But for example, my mother-in-law is a tennis player, and she does not want anything to do with pickleball. Like, it's noisy, they're taking up our courts, whatever. And so, but for real traditionalists, that tennis, they love their tennis, they do think it's detracting from that. But I see people that are beginners at tennis, and I'm looking at them on a court going, how is that fun? You're having a rally of 2 or 3, whereas on a pickleball court, you can have a really good fun time. So I think there's room for it. I think all tennis clubs are realizing they've got to make a space for it. Yes, it's a little bit noisy. But, they're trying to come up with this new paddle technology now, which I don't know if it'll catch on, where they're not as noisy. These paddles are 50% quieter. They're called owl paddles. In fact, I don't know if you watched Pickleball Slam, which was on TV.
I did watch that. Did you see that?
No.
So it was John McEnroe who was banging on pickleball early on, but he's into it now because now he's getting good at it. It was him and Agassi, Steffi Graf, my hero. If if there's somebody I could get on our podcast, she'd be top of the list. And Maria Sharapova.
Oh wow.
And it was great.
That's
It was in
lineup.
Vegas.
And Cameron Irwin commentated it.
Did she really?
Yeah, she was a guest on our podcast, sports broadcaster. But yeah, and I thought she did a great job. But yeah,
Yes.
the event was on ESPN.
It was the second year they've done it, and but anyway, Mac was using an owl paddle, and it's sort of got a felt face, so it does reduce the noise. But to answer your question, sorry, and I
No, that's
deviated
fine.
No, I
from
love
the-
it. I love it.
You know, there are still some people that really are against it, and then I think, but a lot of people, a lot of my friends that used to be 5-0, and you know, I'm a 5-0 tennis player. The 5-0 tennis players have now all transitioned into pickleball, because it's almost like you can have a second career or a second.
Wind.
Yes, and you know, have that success again of getting on a podium and winning tournaments, whereas because you know, we're all getting beaten by the youngsters now at 5-0, but now we're in pickleball, and now you've got age groups, so you can play in the over 50s or the over 35s, and suddenly you can, you know, you're winning again.
Yeah.
And the best example I can give you as well is we've got a friend, Natalie Bagby, who she's French, lovely girl, and she's a mate of mine, and she lives up in the Palisades. And she was an extremely good tennis player, played at Wimbledon, got to the semi-finals, I think, of the doubles in Wimbledon. So, like, there's me, tennis player, and then there's Natalie, okay?
Right.
Night and day. If I can get on the tennis court with her, I'm, like, so happy. Totally quit tennis, got into pickleball, concentrated for 6 months, got really good, and now she plays on the senior pro tour.
Wow.
And she doesn't pick up a tennis racket anymore,
Yeah.
which is shocking. But
yeah,
like,
and there's so many opportunities too. Like there's tournaments almost every other weekend.
Yep.
And it's almost year round too.
Yeah.
And
if you get into the pros, you know, they're traveling all over the country, even internationally. You know, there's a English Open. You know, there's tournaments all over the place. But you know, there's so much opportunity. I mean, Florida and California are the hotbeds. Texas is probably another hotbed, but other states now are really getting into it, and a lot of them, like Utah and places, are building indoor facilities. And you know, and people are building. There's Chicken and Pickle. There's these places where you can go and play and have a beer afterwards and food. And they know that this is just, it's a very social game as well. And
Yeah, I'm actually seeing that at excuse me. I'm actually seeing that at the malls.
yes,
They're starting to build
indoor malls, because they're
Indoor
not
malls.
being
Yeah.
used.
they're not
really
being
anymore.
used.
Yeah.
Everybody's shopping online. COVID.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I guess Top Golf is a good example
Oh,
of
yeah.
that. You know what I mean? You don't have to be a golfer. You just grab a club, have a beer, and you're hitting at targets. You know, and you're having a laugh with your mates.
Would you say it's less demanding on your body than tennis?
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
I would, but you are using different muscles. So you have to bend your knees a bit, and it's you kind of lean forward. You're at the kitchen line, so you're sort of leaning forward a little bit. So there's different. Did I tell you guys this? I was coaching this morning, and I was telling a couple of the ladies, I said, if I ever saw myself leaning forward and playing tennis like that, I would quit, right? I'd be like, you're done. But that's exactly what you do in pickleball. So there's a little bit of a adjustment until your body gets used to that. But it's, you know, it's sideways movement. And there's a lot of, there is still, you will work up a sweat. You will, you know, come home and need to sit down. I'm exhausted from playing with this one earlier today, you know, but it's not quite as dynamic. There's not as much court to cover. So that's a little easier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I read this statistic, or this fact that was projecting for this next year, that there were going to be over $400 million in pickleball injuries.
Yeah.
Because,
yep.
and I think this is my hypothesis, is that it pertains to people who have kind of just been sitting on the couch,
Yes.
working from home, not exercising,
Yes.
not having that base, and then going and playing pickleball because it's easy for everybody.
Here's the other thing. In tennis, right, you'd say, hey, do you want to go play tennis? Yeah. And so we play for an hour and a half. We'd have, 3 sets, whatever. And then that might be on a Wednesday. And they say, you want to play Saturday? Sure, play Saturday, right? Pickleball, someone says, you want to play pickleball? You play on a Monday. And they're like, oh, we need another fourth. Can you stay for a bit longer? Yeah, sure. So you stay for a bit longer. And they say, let's do it tomorrow. And it happens and suddenly you're playing every day. You would never do that in tennis, right? So the amount of time you're on court playing, because you think, it's just a court, right? It's not very big. So it's the amount of time you're on the court is vastly more than it would be if you were playing tennis.
Yeah.
So that obviously is gonna lead to injuries. And again, you know, it is seen, and a lot of people that are older, not quite as mobile, are having a go, but they don't move as well. So if their technique is off at all, they might stumble back and fall over, or, you know, play so much that their wrist is hurting because they're a little older. So
Right.
it's kind of to do with the amount you play, and I think the age group that are interested in playing.
Right. And you have an exercise physiology background,
I
right?
do.
Yeah. So like so then what would you say if you were giving people advice that were wanting to try the sport but don't have this base, right?
Yeah.
Of stability, mobility, whatever, what would you recommend?
Well, I'm biased because I'm a coach, but I would tell you initially, do not. We are old now. These people. If you're over 50, and I was a show up and play kind of kid my whole life. I never wanted to stretch. I just like, my warm up was, you know, okay, I'm good, you know. And so you've got to stretch, and you've got to dynamically warm up before you start. So there's that. And then I just think it is important to get the basic fundamentals down. Take a couple of lessons so that you know how you need to move, and that will drastically reduce the number of injuries that you're using. And, you know, you don't have to hit the ball as 1,000 miles an hour. It's a light paddle and a little ball, a little light ball. If you try and hit the snot out of it, excuse my French, you might throw your shoulder out, right? Because you don't have, it's very light, you know what I mean? And it's really more about placement. I mean, you want to snap it away, but, you know, it's more about placement, and just having those discussions and getting a feel for it, I think, is my advice would be to take a few lessons and just, you know, don't think it's just, you can just show up like table tennis and play, right?
Nope, that was me.
Yeah.
I was smacking it really hard every single time I had it.
And then you're like, why is my shoulder hurting? You know?
I know.
Why is my lower back hurting?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I felt like I ripped my shoulder out today when I went to go hit an overhead ball and I completely whiffed it. So then, yeah, I played it off.
It's just so tempting, especially when it's a volley.
I
You just
know.
go, "Ah, man."
But you haven't got any resistance, you see, so you can literally, you're whiffling in the air, and you can throw your shoulder out just by doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally understandable. Well, and coaching wise, like, what is kind of like, how did you get into learning about the sport? Did you kind of like, did Lee teach you, or did you kind of educate yourself through? I mean, during COVID, my boyfriend and I were watching YouTube videos, and we built our own pickleball court, and we were like just drilling back and forth with this like PVC pipe. And you know.
No, it's great. I mean, you can just do it against the wall or anything. But well, so the funny story about how I got into it was, I've known Lee since she was 16 and I was 20 back in England. And we played tennis together. And I like to say I taught her to play doubles in tennis, because we play a lot of doubles in England. And then she went off to college and blah, blah. Anyway, we reconnected when beach tennis started taking off. I don't know if you've heard of that.
Oh,
but
yeah.
It's beach tennis.
Big in Hermosa Beach.
Yeah. Beach tennis was the first one that came along that we all started to play, which was over a higher net, but initially it was with real tennis rackets, and then now they've changed it to a different paddle. And I met her on the beach, literally bumped into her, and I'm like, what are you doing here? And like, we chatted. Anyway, she had then moved to Oregon. Anyway, then she was telling me, we reconnected again, and she was telling me I'm a pro pickleball player. I'm like, what? I'm like, what are you talking about? Anyway, and she said, yeah, I've got a tournament in El Segundo, an APP a tournament. She said, I'll come by and see you. I said, yeah, come meet the boys, see the boys. She hasn't seen the boys since they were little. And so she came to the house, and I said, well, I'll come down with you. And so we walked down to the park where they'd set up this professional tournament, right? So it wasn't just walking down the park. And we're walking through the park, and people are running up to her and saying, oh, Lee, will you sign my paddle? Will you sign my wiffle, my pickleball? I'm like, what is going on? I'm like, what? And she goes, oh, kind of a big deal. I mean, she hates that I say it. She goes,
Kind of a big deal.
Yeah. She says that, she doesn't say that, but I think she did. Anyway, and so I then witnessed the very good players playing in this tournament. And she said, you'd be great, it's all touch and feel and blah, blah, blah. And so I said, oh. And so we had a little hit, and I said, no, I'm still playing tennis. I don't know about this, But gradually she said, hang them up, Pen, hang up your sticks, pickleball's where it's at. And so I started to play a bit more. I played in a little tournament. And as soon as you start playing, I mean, you know, you get
It's
hooked.
addicting. Yeah.
It's very addictive.
Yeah.
And it's just easy, and you come out, and it's easy to set up. You know, everybody wants to play, and so I started playing, and then Lee and I started talking, and then she was saying to me, "Be my agent," and I went. And actually, I was telling you, wasn't I, the guest you had on one of the weeks, Kashi was. I was listening to that podcast, and I'm like, oh, she's absolutely right. She said, "Be my agent." I'm like, no, I haven't got the energy. I'm not Jerry Maguire. That's not happening. Well, be my business manager. And I said, well, maybe. Okay, got a bit of, you know, business background acumen that I can bring. And then the idea for the company came up. But we then said, I said, okay, I'm going to get qualified as a coach because this is fun. And people, you know, just by playing, were playing with me going, oh, what am I doing wrong? You know, and I'd coached tennis for a long time. So I went and got qualified. And then we then realized, oh, we can use this, and as you know, we can run clinics and whatnot. And that's kind of how I got into it, really.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, such a fun story.
Yeah. But 2021, I was late to the game. A lot of people took it up during COVID in 2020. I really didn't start until 2021.
Well, never too late.
And there you go.
Yeah.
And here we are.
And you have and obviously you have a really interesting background too and resume that I'm sure is helping you with Absolutely Pickled and kind of how marketing wise and stuff.
Yeah.
Because you worked for DirecTV for a long time.
Yes.
And you had what was the show that you were a producer for?
This Week on Sports.
Yes.
So, yes, I started at DirecTV in 2000. I had a 13-year career there, but I was initially hired as a manager in sports marketing, quickly became senior manager in sports marketing. And that was at the time when DirecTV was they had about 9 million subscribers. And in the time while I was there, it got up to 20 million subscribers.
Wow.
Like we were on that. It was a fun time, right?
Yeah.
This was all before streaming came in. Sorry, not screening. Streaming came in. You know, so there was some original content. But one of the things, I worked in sports marketing. And so we had NFL Sunday Ticket, NBA League Pass, MLB Extra Innings, you know, those subscription packages for out-of-market games. And so the idea that my boss came up with was to produce a show. And we started it was called This Month on Sports. And we did a show. And then we got so good at it and we got all these connections that we did it weekly, which was hard work. But I was the associate producer on there. And so we would, what we did was we did sort of feature stories about whatever, you know, if it was NFL season, we were going to the draft and we were getting NFL players to come on the show. And then we were also, at the same time, at the breaks, we were promoting the subscription services. So it was what was called a Barker channel. So it was only a show that DirecTV subscribers could access. And it was self-promoting for the subscription packages, but we did some really nice feature stories on all the different pro sports. And I got to be a part of it, and it was super fun.
So you got to travel to all those
those
events.
I went to the NFL draft. I went to MLB training camp. We went to the best one was we went to the Pro Bowl in Hawaii.
Oh, yeah.
Cool.
And that was super fun because we were there. I actually was pregnant. I hadn't told anybody. And my mate would go, come on, have a cocktail. And I'm like, yeah, no. And finally I had to pull her aside and go, oh, mate, I'm pregnant. Oh my God, you know. Yeah. But everybody, we had a great time. We were with, Peyton Manning, Jake Plummer. I don't know if you know any of these names. This was back in those days. And it was superb. So much fun. I mean, it was a really good time. So, learned a lot of marketing there.
Yeah. And then after DirecTV, you transitioned into kind of doing your own independent contracting.
Yeah, I ended up being an independent consultant working from home. I did a stint for one of my bosses at DirecTV that moved to SiriusXM, so I kind of helped her out with some stuff. And I'd done a lot of marketing. I transitioned from sports marketing to more customer communications and loyalty retention kind of marketing. So I helped Sirius with they had some, there was a few customer care issues they had, and they needed some help with copywriting and sort of how to communicate with their customers. And so it was an easy transition because it's SiriusXM's, satellite radio as opposed to satellite TV.
Right.
this boss was fantastic. So I had a lot of really good mentors. I was lucky going through my career as far as strong women mentors that were, you know, really taught me the ropes. Because as you know, my degree is in sports science and then exercise physiology, and I've worked in marketing my entire life. So
I mean, it just goes to show that you don't need to.
No, you just need a degree.
Yeah.
I just tell my kids, just get a degree. It'll all work out.
And so, but you came from, obviously you were in England.
Yep.
And then you came to school here.
Yep.
And then you went back.
I
and then
did.
You came back.
Yes.
So
I bounced around a bit, yeah. So I came out here to do my master's degree at San Diego State. Thought it was only going to be a year because you could do a master's degree in a year in England. Ended up thinking it was 2, plus it's San Diego, people. So I'm like, Mum, it's going to be 2 years. And then I got offered a job. And so then I was working in the athletic department, like we all, you know, and I was running promotions on the field for football. And this is, by the way, when Marshall Falk was at San Diego State. So it was, again, a super fun time. And I was working there and it was, I think it was the end of 96. This is showing my age now. I'm old, people. I could have birthed both these two. I got offered a job back in England, and I never thought I was going to stay here forever, at the Science Museum in London, because they had a new it was a brand new exhibition called The Science of Sport. And it was so fun. I mean, such hard work. It's a 7-day operation. I'll never work 7 days again. Although having said that, I'm coaching nearly 7 days a week now. But anyway, and I got to go, and basically they hadn't finished designing it. So it was a big exhibition space, which was a temporary exhibition, but it was, I used to say temporary, it was there for a year and a half. And I got involved before they'd hired anybody. I was the exhibition manager, but I was working with the architects and the designers of the exhibitions, and it was an interactive exhibition. So a lot of the exhibits were interactive. So we had you walk in and there was a nutrition section where you could learn all about sports nutrition.
Oh, wow.
And then there was different stations where you could try out different sports, and we talked about the ergonomics of swinging a golf club or a tennis, and then we even had a surfboard in there, you know, on a mechanical, so it was like a mechanical ball, but it was a surfboard. Hilarious. And we had so there was all these different exhibits to basically teach people sports science, which is what I'd learned at undergrad. And it was a big major attraction. I was shocked to say I was on TV, which I was like, oh. But anyway, I was on TV for a bit, did a lot of radio, but we had some real sporting legends that came and helped open it. So in England, obviously soccer's big. So we had Kevin Keegan, who's a real legend in soccer.
You can say football.
Football. Oh, can I? Did I say football or soccer? I don't forget.
No, you said soccer.
I've been here too long. And we had Nigel Mansell, who was like the Lewis Hamilton of his day. So we had a big McLaren car there. You know,
yeah.
We had this. Anyway, it was fantastic, and I got to help and have input on the finish of the design of it, which was super fun. And then this huge opening, and then it was a 7-day, and I had to hire the staff. So I basically hired 28 fresh sports science graduates, who then, it was their first job. So you can imagine, and I'm about 27 and they're about 21.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I'm not like, it was very interesting, but, you know, had a great time, you know, tried to keep that, we're not buddies, I'm your boss. However, yes, we can go down the pub afterwards. You did a good job. So, but it was great fun. I didn't sleep much for a year and a half. I was working extremely hard.
Wow.
But it was great. And then it did actually, I think, tour. What happened was my now husband, came, proposed. So then I was engaged, did another 9 months. Then we got married in England, and then I had to leave the exhibition, and we flew back here and started married life.
Yeah.
It all went downhill from there.
That's such an interesting path that you've had of, I mean, you have so much experience, right?
Yeah.
So like, based off of your extensive background,
Yes.
in, you know, event management, marketing, sports, all that stuff, what would you say is gonna would make a successful sporting event? Basically, like, and you could pertain it to pickleball, or you could pertain it to beach, right? I play beach volleyball.
Yeah.
And
You mean successful with like the fans?
just overall successful
Tournament, yeah.
Whether that means like everything from prize money to turnout to
fan engagement,
sales, all of that.
Yes.
You know, because I think that we have these, for lack of a better word, like conglomerate sports that dominate in the US, but then there's hard to get emerging sports to break that barrier.
And you know, pickleball is a good example.
Right.
People still are scratching their heads like, is this a spectator sport? But there is a lot of interest in, you know, in the crowds are coming, and there are people that are really into pickleball that are coming to watch pickleball. Is it a good television, you know, viewing experience? You know, I think it is, and I think it can be. But I think the main thing is you've got to attract. There has to be a fun element to it, right? There has to be some other reason than just coming to watch. So any tennis event, right? There's more than just the tennis going on, right? There's a lot of sort of sponsor tents and activities around, and you know, anything you can have entertainment wise, music wise, which is why we were talking about having these pickleball parties rather than angry energy of, well, I'm on not this court, and you know, so and it's not organized, and you know, the tournament thing. You need to have more of I think a successful event has the competitive nature of it as well as the fun nature of it as well, you know. Sure. So I don't know that one's a question, but
yeah, definitely. And I'm just thinking, relating it to like my sport of beach volleyball, and granted, like only some of the tournaments are at a beach where there's like naturally a fun element built into that.
I was going to say, just saying beach volleyball, everybody's like, oh, I get to go to the beach. Excellent. What's next?
Yeah. But then, you know, we're playing in places that's like somewhere in the Midwest or somewhere where we're in like a tennis facility, you know. But yeah, I think it's going to be really interesting to see what happens with pickleball too. Especially if it picks up more and more internationally, because then you might see it in the Olympics one day.
Right.
You know.
Well, and so, you know, Lee and I talk about this all the time because, you know, we're still at the kind of adolescent age in the US, but we're way further ahead than England. They're still in the toddler years, right? So, you know, they're looking to see what is happening in the US and how it's evolving to sort of follow that. Now, it's partly to do with, again, it's England, and so there are a lot of indoor gyms. They're playing on wood surfaces, you know, taped courts. They don't have a lot of actual permanent courts, although there's more and more happening. But I think it is growing internationally, and Lee is actually one of the things she does, and she was consulting for Duper, but she was talking to India and England and Spain, because she's fluent in Spanish because she's from Gibraltar. And so she was actually helping to develop what the idea, I know at one point they were trying to do, was from a rating standpoint, try and have a universal international rating system, because in tennis there's a rating system in the US, there's a different rating system in the UK, there's a different rating system in France, right? And so why wouldn't you realize that that's not the way to do it, and what right from the get-go of the genesis of the sport, have one rating system. That's sort of but again, that's at the competitive level of those people that want to play tournaments, whatever. Lee and I are also more about how do we really expand it at the grassroots level so that everybody's having fun and getting to enjoy it and understand the sport and meet new people. Do you know that, I mean, I started playing pickleball, I've got a whole 300 new friends I didn't know. and my husband's like, I haven't got enough friends. And I've got now a whole bunch of new friends just through pickleball. They're not tennis friends that became pickleball players. They are straight up pickleball players that I've met.
Yeah, I think that the paddle sport is also big in Europe, isn't it? Paddle.
Padel,
paddle. They're starting to bring that over here. Have you seen that?
Yeah.
How would you compare the two? Do you think that it'll be somewhat similar in terms of popularity?
So paddle is very popular in Spain and I think Italy, and the LTA, Lawn Tennis Association, is putting some effort and money probably behind expanding that in England. And I have encountered it. It's, to me, so for those that don't know, It's a bit of a bigger court, and it's got sort of perspex around walls around, right? So it has this element of squash. You know, flipping hate squash. As a tennis player, I am not interested in a ball coming from behind me. Yeah. Okay. So I think there's a different skill set to it, but it's a great sport. And I am always a proponent for any racket sport, right? If there's a bat and a ball, I'm in, right? And so I think that I still think, and I believe in the US, that pickleball is already hands down winning that game. In Europe, it'll depend where, you know, if the facilities are built, people, if they build it, they will come, right? But I think that, again, I think pickleball's easier to pick up, cheaper. The paddles are cheap-ish. I mean, they're getting expensive, but you can get a fairly economical paddle. You know, it's a quick game. You can get together. It doesn't require a lot. Simple net. You don't need a facility with walls around.
Right. Yeah.
So accessibility, pickleball wins. So I think pickleball wins that one.
Yeah, I mean, I'm seeing it sometimes in cul-de-sacs, just taped out on the floor, and they just bring their own net. The neighborhood kids and the families, and
which
and
is
I
how
saw
the
that.
sport
Yeah,
started.
Yeah.
You know, the guys wanted something to do in the summer, and they threw a net together and taped it out and made up the game.
it's perfect.
Yeah.
I know. It's I'm just so addicted to it.
And you're getting good.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
And she's a lefty. They're annoying.
Yeah,
those
well,
lefties.
she'll. Have you seen it yet?
No.
When she
Well,
switches hands.
there was a shot today where you went and she went for it with her right hand, and I'm like,
Without a
just put the
paddle.
paddle
You
in.
did it without a paddle.
It was just reactionary, you know, like,
Like volleyball.
I'm just trying to pop the ball up.
And it's like, if you just had the paddle, you could have done
And
it.
that's the thing with volleyball players. It's like when they, with a paddle sport or racket sport, it's weird to conceptualize an extension of your hand. So at first it's weird. You're maybe hitting the ball in your hand or on like
because you're used
by the
to
handles, because I'm used to getting the ball all the way to my hand or to my, I literally, because you know, for volleyball, I'm passing the ball here.
Yeah.
So, but it's been very nice to play the sport because it's translated really well to my sport. Everything from like standing at the kitchen, right? When you're standing at the kitchen, you have to be, it's good hand-eye coordination. The ball is coming not necessarily faster than a volleyball, but you have less time because you're that much closer.
Yeah.
So it's really good for reaction. It's really good. Like it's the same concept of keeping the ball away from you. Like you never want to be cuffed up here. You want the ball away. You want it out in front of you, never behind you. So it translates well, and it's
a lot of times we talk about, you know, I teach these beginners, and some of them have played tennis, and I said, you know, ladies, it's not a ladylike sport. Nobody crosses their legs in pickleball, okay? So the guys have an advantage of already. And we also don't want you turning, because then they can go behind. You've got to stay square on, and you've got to keep your hands in front. So I'm literally telling them it's like almost like fielding a baseball, right? You've got to stick your chest out, stick your bum out, you know, and you've got to, that way you keep your hands in front.
Yeah.
Right.
And so, you know, but then that's why, to your point earlier, you know, having just a quick lesson of those basics and finding out that you're always facing the ball, okay? And you're not twisting at the torso, you're staying and you're facing the ball and you're moving, you know, that's those teeny little things will then suddenly, okay, because then naturally your hands are in front.
right.
So
Yeah.
it's just little things like that will help.
How can people, if people in the area want to start learning, and are you accessible, or like how can people find?
Totally. Yeah, they can go to absolutelypickled.com is our website, and my contact info is on there.
Amazing.
But I teach in El Segundo, at the courts in El Segundo, if you're in the South Bay. I'd love to see you. Just give me a call. And yeah, I mean, I can give you my details on that, but probably the website's the best place to go. My contacts are there.
Yeah. I want to talk too about the breast cancer logo a little bit.
Thank you.
And if you'd be open to kind of sharing your story, because I think, one, it's important to talk about, and two, I think the mentality that you've taken on from it is, you know, admirable. So
Yes, thanks. Well, everybody, girls particularly well, not particularly, obviously, but I mean, men can get it too, but girls, go get your mammogram. It was 2015. And again, I'm aging myself. I was 45 and I had started having, you know, getting my mammogram at 40, which is when you're recommended, having no family history. If you have family history, obviously start sooner. But, just routine mammogram. And I'm going to get a little personal here. I didn't have enormous boobs. We used to call them small and tiny, and they're now called fake and bake. And I'll explain the reason, but small and tiny. So I used to laugh and say to people, I don't really go for a mammogram. I go for a nippleogram. Anyway, I went for their first mammogram, and when you don't have very big boobs, it's not the most pleasant experience because there's not much to squish, right? But the first one, I had the mammogram, and they noticed something they weren't sure about. And so I had a biopsy, and they said, oh, no, it's fine. It was just dense tissue. So I'm thinking, oh, right, okay, great. So I go another year, and you know what it's like. You're supposed to go annually. So 12 months goes by, and then you're like, oh God, I've got to schedule. And so by the time I had my fourth mammogram, I was 45 because a year, I hadn't gone right on time. And same thing happened. So I'd had 3 clear mammograms, and the fourth one came along. They said to me, do you want to have a 3D? So it's an extra $45. Your insurance might not cover it. I said, yeah, sure, fine. So I had the extra look, I guess. And same thing. They said, we spot something. We need to biopsy that. So I'm like, oh, yeah, that happened to me before. I've got dense breast tissue. It's fine. Okay, fine. So we'll do the biopsy. And I thought nothing of it. And then my doctor called and said, I need to just talk about the results of the biopsy. I'm like, oh, yeah. And my husband said, do you want me to come with? I'm like, no, it's fine. It's just going to say dense breast tissue. Don't worry about it. And I got to the doctor's office, and my doctor walked in, who I've known for 20 years, and she didn't even have to say anything. And I went, oh. And then I swore. And she said, I'm very sorry. Yeah, you've got breast cancer. And I was like, what? And I didn't feel anything. And I didn't. And so I had stage 2B lobular breast cancer in my left breast. So I had and it was, and lobular it hides. So it's not like ductile, which is more near your nipples.
Right.
Lobular it's harder to detect. So I had a tumor up here and a tumor underneath my left boob. And UCLA were fantastic. Can't speak highly enough. Anyway, but found out, and that was a Thursday. It was October 1st of Breast Cancer Awareness Month, right? October 1st of 2015, and by the Tuesday, I was scheduled for a MRI to confirm what we now knew, and then they said, right one doesn't look too good either. And by Wednesday, I had a team of doctors, and very quickly had to make a decision. If you like, there's the decision between lumpectomy or mastectomy or double mastectomy. My boobs were tiny, so a lumpectomy would probably basically mean half my boob was gone. So I ended up saying, okay, we need to have a mastectomy. And then I'm like, I don't want to be in a retirement home with one boob up here and one boob down here. So I said, fine, we'll do them both. Because they said, we don't really like the look of that one either. So I had a double mastectomy. Very quickly, I got on with it. And that was tough. I've had 2 children, and the mastectomy was the worst surgery. It was painful, and it was hard, and it took, it's a brutal surgery. There should be a better way, but for now, that's all you can do. So I had my brother. We like to laugh because, sorry, this is a very long story. I'm edited away, but I had my boobs blown off, as my brother likes to say, on November 5th, which is funny because that's bonfire night in England. And we go, remember the 5th of November, you set off fireworks. And he goes, oh, that's great. So you've got your boobs blown off on November the 5th. And then I started my first round of chemo 2 weeks after that.
Wow.
3 weeks after that, maybe. I wanted to get on with it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and I think athletes as well, we're competitive. And I'm like, my husband said, do you want to cry? I'm like, no, I want to punch somebody, and so we got on with it. And I went through 4 rounds of aggressive chemo, lost my hair, which you have to have a good attitude about. And so thankful that I didn't look too, you do look ridiculous out here, don't you? But my head wasn't too stupid looking. And although I did look like an egg. And, I just decided to have fun with it and just say, I'm okay, and Facebook was great, and people wanted to hear, and you get a lot of support from Facebook as well. And so oftentimes I would post on Facebook when I actually wasn't feeling great, but they didn't know that. And I'd post something funny, and then everybody would tell me nice stuff, good job, you got this, whatever. So anyway, I got through the treatment, then I had to have radiation, and then I was done in under a year, and it was gone. But then they say to you, I'm like, well, what do we do now? And they said, well, that's kind of it. We just kind of have to, fingers crossed it doesn't come back or anything like that. And that's actually, just heads up, ladies, when you need to be careful, because that's when it hits you mentally. Because when you're fighting it, you're running and you're fighting and you're doing what we athletes do, and we're winning the match, right? And once it's over, suddenly you're like, what do I do now? And then it hits you. In fact, I have a really good analogy. I'm English, so we don't go to the doctor, we don't have therapy, but I have since. And a therapist said to me, and this was a really good one, she said, here's what's happening. She said, have you heard about the lion and the gazelle by the watering hole? And I'm like, what? Oh, no, sorry. She said about gazelle by the watering hole. And I said, no. She goes, well, there's a gazelle by a watering hole, and along comes a lion. She says, what do you think the gazelle does? And I said, I don't know, run. She says, yeah. So the gazelle starts running, and the lion starts chasing. And she said, and the gazelle's running and the lion's chasing. And as long as the gazelle doesn't stick its foot in a pothole or something, it can outrun the lion. And she says, so eventually the gazelle outruns the lion and the lion goes away. And the gazelle can stop running. She says, what do you think the gazelle does now? I said, well, I don't know. And she said, it shakes uncontrollably. And that is National Geographic true. She says, because now that it stopped running, it suddenly realizes, oh my God, I nearly got eaten by a lion. And so the analogy is, you when you're fighting it, you're going through chemo, you're going through radiation, you're doing all the things to get rid of it. And once it's gone, then it hits you, oh my God, I nearly died of cancer, right? And then it's a head thing, and you have to realize that your body is now shaking and going, that wasn't very fun, and that was a near-death experience, and what if it comes back, and all of this stuff. So that's when you need really good support, and you don't get the everybody's cheering you on when you're going through chemo. No one's cheering you on when you're done. Oh, well done. Now they're off to something else, and you're left going, what happened?
Yeah. It's tough because because also with our healthcare system too, now it's maybe you get diagnosed and it takes weeks, months before you get like an oncologist, a team of doctors to even be able to see you. You know?
I didn't have that experience with UCLA,
which is great.
Now, I don't think it was because of my I have good insurance, but I was lucky. Now the system they had, they were very quick for me.
That's amazing.
So hopefully, and that's what it should be for everybody. So but I know in England I would be dead. I would be dead because I would have that exact thing with National Healthcare Service. I'd probably had the mammogram, and 6 months later, I probably wouldn't. Well, I mean, we're talking dramatically
right?
here,
No, but then it's like my friend's mom. It took her a while. My mom's friend. It took her a while to even get a doctor to like look at her and give her like a treatment plan. And so this whole time you're sitting knowing that you have breast cancer, not knowing the severity of it. Right. And like that's also a mental aspect of it too, where you're just like making yourself sick, so worried about what's to come, and only to find out maybe that it's not that severe, or you're gonna be okay, or whatever it is. So it's great that you got the treatment that you needed, and it was fast and easy. And granted, I know like I don't know what it's like obviously, and how hard it must have been,
Yeah, I mean, my kids, it's tough if you've got kids. My kids were 15 and 12. My eldest, he was 15 and he did not like to see me with a bald head. My youngest, who's just like me, was like, oh, yeah, I don't, he was fine. I was like, yeah. And actually, I will tell you that your hair does grow back. And how many women can say that they have felt the shower water hit their head? It's like I have had some experience that I've got thick hair and it came back, but it also from a feminine perspective, you've lost part of yourself, you know what I mean? And your hair, and then your eyebrows. My eyebrows never really came back properly, but once my hair started to come back, then my eyelashes dropped out. I'm like, what? You know, but all of these things they're part of our identity. Do you know what I mean? And they give you steroids, so I put on a bit of weight, and so you don't feel very good, and you don't feel sexy anymore. And you know, that's an aspect of it that oftentimes the physical therapist that I go to, she often says to me, will you talk to this lady, because she's really having a hard time, because they want to know that it will get better, but it is a bit rubbish to begin with, and it can be a bit rubbish at times, you know. And for me it gets rubbish when I hear of somebody who got it, you know, after I did, and it was similar to mine, and then they pass away, and then it all comes flooding back, and I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I bet.
So it's always there in the back of your head, unfortunately. But it's one of those things you just what are you gonna do?
Yeah.
You just got to
It's
attack
life.
it. It's
Yeah.
you know, you got to attack.
Well,
Like an athlete.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that.
I know.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah, no, anytime, and that's why we sell these T-shirts.
Yeah.
Just so that you can, support.
I love it. Yeah.
Listeners, go on their website.
Yeah,
and
these we
please
made them
purchase.
for October, and then
Yeah.
I just said, can we just leave them up? So you can still get them, and if you buy one, I will still donate 10% to breast cancer awareness.
Oh,
so.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you use a little bit of humor too.
A little
like
bit.
You
You think?
well, like, I mean, it's great, and I think it's a fun approach to life.
It's a coping mechanism, but yeah.
But you know, like I think it's a good mentality for you know. Let's relate it to sports, right?
Yes.
So using humor in sport for, like, let's say as a coach, what would you say to a player who's it's a pressure situation, or they're being really hard on themselves?
Yeah.
Like,
Well, I mean, you know, you could ask any of my students. I make analogies about the kitchen all the time. When they're learning the dink, I say, has everybody got a dishwasher? You know, and this isn't answering your question, but this is just an example of the things that I do. Because I do think you learn better if you're having fun. And something analogous, and my husband calls them the penalogies, because I penalogies, but I'll try and come up with something that makes them lighten up. So for someone that's struggling, to your point, I would just try and lighten it up and go, no one's going to die. You know, it's just a plastic ball and a paddle, and really we're taking ourselves seriously you know, in this game. But you know, the beginners that I teach, I sort of say, has everybody got a dishwasher? And they're like, yeah. And I said, well, so you know when you shut the dishwasher, if you're not kicking it with your foot because you're being lazy, you know, what do? You bend down, you pick up the dishwasher and you close it, right? You don't slam it though, because you'll break the glasses, and you don't baby it because it won't shut. And a dink in pickleball is closing the dishwasher, right? So, and it's funny because it's the kitchen. And the other thing people struggle to do is they don't get up to the kitchen line. And we always said in tennis, the party's at the net. Well, in pickleball, the party's in the kitchen. And when you go to a party, where does everybody end up? In the kitchen. So
where the
we're
food is.
You know, so that's the sort of silliness I do.
No, I
but,
like
you know,
it.
but lightening it up, and someone's struggling and really gripping, and you know, you just got to not take yourself too seriously, you know.
Yeah.
I think.
No, it's great. I think it's a great mentality to have, and I think that all athletes at any level can use it, and it would benefit them.
Well, athletes are very hard on ourselves. We're very hard.
yes.
I mean, I'm as guilty as the next one, you know, and I'm very good at telling you what to do, but whether I do it myself, I'm like, get your head out of your, you know. So but because we want to win, and we expect a level of excellence that other people don't necessarily ask of themselves, and that's okay. It's a good thing. Yeah, that's how you get. Well, you know, you're a winner. I mean, you know, you can't get to the top if you don't have that kind of drive.
Yeah, it's not easy, but you know, there's days where it's harder, it's days where it's easier. So
Yeah,
it's well said.
Wait till you get old like me, and it's really hard. Getting out of bed's hard.
Oh man.
Is that it?
Yeah, I feel like we talked a little.
Yeah, sorry.
don't
No, this was
apologize.
great. I
Don't
love
apologize.
it.
Edit at will.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we will.
Yes.
But I just want to say that I really enjoyed hearing you speak. I didn't want to interrupt because I just wanted to hear your stories.
Oh,
And I just wanted to say that I love your approach to life. I love the way that you translate your approach on life through this company.
yeah.
Not taking yourself too seriously, involving everybody, having a good time. And I just loved everything about it. So thank you for sharing
Thank
that.
you very much.
Yeah.
Really excited. Well, you know, we were trying to be kind of, with the logo, a bit disruptive. And, you know, again, don't take it too seriously.
Yeah.
This actually came from, we both love Absolutely Fabulous, the comedy series. I don't know if you've heard of it in England.
So yeah.
So we were like, absolutely pickled. Let's just do it, you know. And then my mother's like, I can't read it. I'm like, I don't care, Mum. You're not the target audience.
Sorry, Mum.
6 doesn't matter. It's not for you.
Yeah,
Although, very good tennis player, and she can probably hang.
Oh, yeah.
Never underestimate old Betty.
Yeah.
75-year-old Betty with an e-brace. She's gonna kick your ass.
I love the genuine approach to all of it, you know, just well-rounded, holistic approach, sort of, you know, and really appreciate your time and thank you for coming on the podcast. But I do have one more question for you.
Far away.
How do you take a bet on yourself, or how have you taken a bet on yourself?
Taking a bet on myself because I've bet on her. My son is a better. That's a problem. But you know, I think I am one of those people who, if you say to me, I can't do it, my husband always says I should have on my headstone, not that I'm going to have one because I'm thinking cremation is probably the way to go, but if I had a headstone, it would say, I'll show you. So I bet on myself when you tell me, the best way to motivate me is to tell me I can't do it in anything in life. Because I'm like, I'll show you, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of, I don't know if that answers the question, but that's how I would bet. If I'm supposed to win or succeed, now I'm nervous. But if I'm not supposed to, or if you think I can't do it, then
watch me.
watch
Yeah.
me. Watch me. Yeah, that was probably.
Yeah, that's the premise
like
of all
that.
of this.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just betting on you, betting on yourself and your community, but watch me do it.
Yeah,
Take pictures along the way.
exactly.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you real quick, funny, and this is again.
No,
edit
that's
away.
fine.
So it just reminded me of Emily, and I can't remember her last name, but there was this girl when we were in school back in England, and I had to run the long distance, so 800 and 1500, and I hated the 1500. I mean, who likes 1500 meters? And this girl, I couldn't beat her. I just couldn't beat her. And 1500 meters it's a strategy game. It's not just a who's the fastest. You have to decide how you're gonna attack it. There's tactics to it. Couldn't beat her. Every time I would lose. Come second every time. And it was the sports day this time, because we would run for the school, right? But then it was a sports day, and we all had houses in England, you know, like kind of like fraternity, intramural type thing. And all of our school was in the stands on the last 100 meters, right? And so we set off. And I thought, I'm going to play this one different. I can't beat her the way I'd normally do it. So the gun went and I pegged it and I ran as fast as I could. And Emily yelled after me, "You'll never keep up that pace." And I turned around and I went, "Watch me." And I ran, and I nearly killed myself. And she was coming, and so we ran past the stands first. And they're cheering, "Oh my God, Penny's winning!" And we ran past them the second time. "Oh my God, Penny's winning!" And she's gaining. But I held her off just because of what she'd said, and I won the race. And it's the only time I beat her. But it was, I swear to God, she helped me. Because
You
she
needed
said,
that fuel. Yeah.
"You'll never keep that up." You know, it was. At 13, I wasn't going to flip her off, but I was like, "Watch me," and that was one of those success. You know,
I'll show you.
Yeah.
I'll show you.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I love that.
This was
But
great.
I think what your guys is doing, you know, is so good, and
Thank you.
Thank
I've you know, obviously had a quick look on all the different guests, and you know, I've got ideas for other guests for you as well. If you want some more, you know.
We'd love to
Yeah.
hear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
This
That
was
was
amazing. Yeah.
So fun.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to
No, this was awesome. Thank
Okay.
you so much.
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that is the Bet on Her podcast.
The
baby.
Yeah. Remember, bet on her.
So that is the Bet on Her podcast.
And cut.
All right.
All right.
Good
Thank
job,
you.
everybody.
Thanks for
Murphy,
you.
what do you think?
Super fun.
Can I smell the microphone?